Hello students and welcome to another day of art. I'm so excited to be creating with y'all. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the elements of art. I am going to now be teaching you an assignment where we get to actually draw and apply the elements of art. This is a tutorial, so you should be able to draw along with me. Any type of paper is fine, even if it's lined notebook paper, no problem. If you still have those colored pencils given to you by the district, now is a great time to use them. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, students, so for our first elements of art drawing, we're gonna make this fun little square that includes all the elements of art as well as some open space to create your own drawing. Go ahead and grab a piece of paper. Any paper is fine, even if it's a lined notebook paper or a scrapbook paper or scrap piece of paper. A pencil, it can be mechanical or a wood pencil, whichever you have. And then if you still have those colored pencils that the district gave you or your own colors, go ahead and get those ready now and we'll get started. All right, students, so go ahead and take your piece of paper. Most of us probably have a rectangular shaped paper, but we're gonna fold it in a way where we can make it into a square. So go ahead and take this bottom right corner and see how I'm lifting up the corner. You're gonna take it and line it up to this side of the paper. So again, you're taking this bottom corner, we're gonna line this side of the paper up with that side of the paper. So go ahead and fold that on up just like so. And try and get it lined up really nicely. It's okay if it's not perfect, but you want to try to do the best you can. And then go ahead and crease that down so you've got a nice fold. Go ahead and keep it here for just a second. We're gonna rotate it and then see how we have this space right here. If you have scissors, you can go ahead and cut that space on off. If you don't have scissors, you can fold your piece of paper up, fold this little part up, and see now I've got a crease there. Flip it over, see this crease? We're gonna fold it the other direction, really crease it nicely. Very important to crease it nicely if you don't have scissors. I'm gonna do it one more time this way. Once I've got a nice crease, I'm gonna go ahead and rip that piece off. Sometimes it can be a little tricky. I'm gonna try and find, I don't want it to rip into the square that we're making. There we go. So you might just have to figure out which direction rips the best. And again, it didn't go perfectly, but that's okay. As long as it's pretty good and there's not big chunks taken out, that's no problem. Great, we should now have a square. Go ahead, you can keep this extra piece for scrap paper to draw later, for your own, or recycle it. Next, we've got this crease here, that's wonderful. We wanna make another crease this direction, so take this corner towards this corner. We're gonna fold it on down. Really folding it downwards, make a nice crease that direction. Open it back on up. We're now gonna take this bottom side and fold it up towards the top side. A lot of folding going on, but that's good because we'll be doing some origami together, which includes a lot of folding, so this is good practice and a good start. Go ahead and open that back up. Now fold right to left, taking this side on over, creasing it on down. Awesome, you now should have all of these different spaces that we're going to be drawing in. All right, before we start our drawing, we are gonna write out the words of our elements of art. So on this top left, go ahead and write line, L-I-N-E, and then just underline it, line. In the next space, we're gonna write the word color, C-O-L-O-R. Go ahead and underline that for color. rotate your square. For the next one here, we're gonna do shape, S-H-A-P-E. Go ahead and underline shape. For the next space, it's gonna be form, F-O-R-M, form. Rotate it again. This is a little bit of a longer word. This is great for our vocabulary. Texture, T-E-X-T-U-R-E, texture. The next one is value, V-A-L-U-E, value. And this will be our seventh and our final element of art, which is space, S-P-A-C-E. Go ahead and underline that. And then for the final one, I just want you to write the elements of art. So the T-H-E, elements, E-L-E-M-E-N-T-S, of, O-V, and then art, A-R-T. And then underneath, write 3+, because you're going to be doing your own drawing here and you need to use 3 or more elements of art, but we're going to do that last, okay? So go ahead and come back to line. We're going to start with line. You can use your pencil, or if you want to grab a colored pencil, that's fine as well, whichever you prefer. I like color, so I think I'll take a colored pencil for line. So I'm going to start with green. For line, we're just going to draw a few different types of lines. There's all these types of lines. I wish we were in person because I would love to ask you what types of lines we could draw. But if there's any that we miss here, please feel free to add them. You know what? Let's start out with a fun line. Let's do a zigzag line. So zigzag line is just when we add these little sharp turns in our line. Let's just do one straight line. Straight line, we did straight lines under all of our words, all of our elements of art. Another fun line is a wave line, like the ocean. That's one way to do a wave line. You could also have it looking like the profile or side of a wave. This is like if we were looking straight on a wave on the horizon. If we were looking sideways on a wave crashing, that's what that would look like. So 2 different wave lines. Another line is a dashed line. Even though these little lines aren't connected, it still gives you the idea of one linear plane. And so that's still a line, it's a dashed line. We could do little squiggly lines, curved lines. We could even do a line consisting of dots. All types of lines. Again, if there's any that I missed that you want to draw, please feel free to add it. Our next one is color. So color is amazing. There's all different types of colors. I want us to use the primary and the secondary colors. We'll learn more about these as we go on through art class, but for now I'm just telling you what they are and we're gonna draw with them, okay? So go ahead, our primary colors, you wanna grab red, yellow, and blue, all right? For red, yellow, and blue, just draw whatever you want. Maybe it's a different shape for each one, but go ahead and use these primary colors and kind of stack them on top or right next to each other underneath color. Again, whatever shape. I might do a square then for my yellow. Yellow's gonna be hard to see because it's already kind of a yellow paper. But just know that I'm using yellow right there. Right next to yellow, maybe I'll do a triangle for red. So these 3 colors are our primary colors in art: red, yellow, and blue. Now we're gonna do our secondary colors, which are purple, orange, and green. How you get the secondary colors, you mix the primary colors together. Isn't that cool? So if you were to mix red and yellow together, you would get orange. So right under these 2, let's maybe do an orange shape. I'm gonna do an orange diamond. And again, it doesn't have to be these shapes. It can be whatever shape you want. Maybe it's just a blob. That's fine too. Our focus isn't the shape in this one. Our focus is more color. So orange is a secondary color. Red and yellow mixed together, you would get orange. And when we're back in class, we'll mix our paint colors to do that, okay? Next, we have yellow and blue. If yellow and blue are mixed together, we would get green. Green is one of our secondary colors. So underneath yellow and blue, let's see what shape I could do. Maybe I'll just do a green heart. And again, don't think too long about the shape. We're more concerned about the colors. So green is one of our secondary colors. Do you remember which two colors mixed together to make green? Yep, so it's yellow and blue. When you mix those together, you would get green. And our final secondary color is purple. Now, what two primary colors have we not mixed together? Red and blue. We don't have red and blue next to each other, so I'm just going to do purple up here, but just remember, to get the color purple, especially when mixing paint or other pigments, you would mix blue and red to get purple, our secondary color. I'm going to do a little star up here for purple. Color it in real nicely, the best you can. Again, I'm not looking for perfection here, just doing it as neatly as possible while not taking too much time so that we can enjoy our other areas. So, just to repeat, because we're going to really go into color later, our primary colors are yellow, blue, and red, and our secondary colors are green, orange, and purple. Do you remember how we get our secondary colors? Right, we mix our primary colors together to make a secondary color. All right, now we can focus more on shape. We already maybe made some fun shapes over here. I did, you maybe did as well, and it's okay if they weren't these shapes. But let's just start drawing more shapes here, and it doesn't matter what color, we're just focusing on shape. We could do a geometrical shape like a triangle, and you can color it in or you can leave it open, whichever you prefer. We've got basic shapes like a circle or even an oval. An oval looks like a circle that's started to get flattened. All different types of shapes. There's rectangles, squares, octagons, so many different types. You could also do organic shapes. Shapes don't have to be geometric. Organic shapes would just be kind of like a blob. So this is just kind of a blob, which is an organic shape. Maybe it looks like a pile of dirt. That would be an organic shape if it's items clumped together. Another example of an organic shape would be like a leaf from a tree. This isn't in the geometric shape patterns, but that's still a shape, right? So you could do a leaf. Go ahead and add at least 2 more shapes here. 1 more geometric and 1 more organic. Let's see. Sorry, y'all, yellow's hard to show up. I'll try not to do too much yellow going forward. All right, so we've covered shape. Now we're gonna move on to form. Do y'all know what form is? Form is when you take a shape. Shape is 2-dimensional, but form is 3D. So it's when we take our shape and we make it 3-dimensional. There's a lot of ways to make a triangle 3-dimensional, but today we're gonna focus on a cone. So in order to make a 3-dimensional triangle into a cone, we're gonna do the top part of a triangle. Now, before you go to the bottom, you don't want to do a straight line. You actually want to give it a nice rounded line. So it looks like an ice cream cone upside down. So go ahead and give that a nice rounded line. Now it's starting to look a little 3-dimensional, but there's a couple things that are missing. For instance, we definitely want to add some shading. So I'm adding these little curved lines to the right side. That would mean the sun is coming from the left-hand side, but we're adding these little curved lines. I call them little eyelash lines because they kind of look like eyelashes from your eyes. And as you can see, I'm doing short lines, and then as I get close to the bottom, I'm making the lines a little longer. And then you want to just add a little bit of a shadow on the same side that your shadow is on the form to make it look like it's grounded and really sitting on the ground. We're now going to turn a circle into a three-dimensional form. Just do the best you can. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Perfect circles are kind of hard to do. But when a circle becomes a form, it's called a sphere. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to pretend like the sun's coming over from this direction, which would mean our shading is on the right-hand side. Adding your little eyelash lines, and please feel free to take your time. You don't need to do it quite as quickly as I am. I'm just trying to do it so you don't have a super long video. But go ahead and add those eyelash lines. As you continue to layer it, see how it gives a really nice shade? And you want it to be darker on the outside, and if it's a little lighter on the inside, that gives it even a little bit more depth and helps make it look a little more realistic. Next, you're gonna add a little bit of a shadow here too, just to make it really rooted. Awesome. We only have space for one more form. We'll get more into form and all the different types later, but I want you to do a really narrow oval. So do it slow, do it right underneath, not slow, close to that cone, and I want you to have some space underneath. So a really narrow oval or an ellipse. And then you're gonna do a straight line on either side coming down from that narrow oval. Go as far as you can before it gets to that fold. And then before, you don't wanna close with a straight line, you wanna close it with a rounded line. We call this, does anybody know what this form is called? It's called a cylinder. This is a really easy way to draw like a cup of water or a glass. We're gonna go ahead and grab our little eyelash lines to the right-hand side. Again, the sun coming from the left. Adding these eyelash lines here. Making them longer towards the bottom and darker on this edge, darker on the edge here. And then if you want to add another medium pressure, not quite as firm pressure, again, to make it look more realistic and give it more depth of shading, you sure can. And then finish it off by adding a little bit of shadow. And it's okay if the shadow doesn't go all the way over. You can stop it right at that fold. Just want to ground it to make it look rooted and sitting on the ground. Next, we're going to move on to texture. Now, texture is really fun, but it sometimes can be hard to know how to draw texture. So just think about using line and different types of lines repeating themselves for texture or different shapes. When you get further into your elements of art, you'll see why they're all important because they build up upon one another. So for texture, our first texture, let's go ahead and add some really extreme curved lines. Really deep. It looks like a really deep wave line almost. That's what it looks like when you have one. I want you to add another one right underneath. I'm going to connect each little hill on top of each other, so my lines coming upwards are connecting to the rounded hill. Go ahead and do one more line of these really extreme curved lines, really extreme wave line. Now it starts to look like scales. It could be scales on a mermaid tail, scales on a dragon, scales on real life things like a fish or a lizard. You can go ahead and color those in. I'm not gonna color them in for time's sake, but do you see how just using line a few times gives us texture? So it looks like a texture there. Another one, we're just gonna do crisscrosses, crossing each other. So just kind of do a bunch of crisscrosses connecting with each other. Do one more line similar to that. It's super basic, but you start to get the idea of maybe a barbed wire fence or stitches, all of which kind of have a pokey texture, right? So again, just using line to give an idea of texture and pokiness. We're gonna do a really simple one for the bottom. Just start to do a bunch of little curved lines together, swirls, and you get the idea of like a soft, fluffy texture, maybe like a bunny tail or a cotton ball, or these clouds. When you think of clouds, I don't know about you guys, but I think fluffy. So again, just using different types of lines to create texture. Next one is value. Go ahead and take whichever color you want. Value is simply just lightness to darkness. So you're really gonna focus on pressure of your pencil. We're gonna start down at this bottom V of your corner. We're gonna use the most pressure for this bottom little V part. Don't feel like, you can close it if you want, but you don't have to. So really give it a lot of pressure, with whichever color you are using. Any color is fine. So give it really firm pressure. Take your time. Don't do it a lot of pressure at once because you'll probably break the end of your colored pencil, but really layer on that color with firm pressure to get it really nice and dark. As dark as you can get with this colored pencil or pencil. Next, we're gonna do another layer, but we're gonna do it with lighter pressure. It's better to start off light before going dark. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a gradient where it's dark purple to really light purple, similar of what I did with red here. But as we go up to the next layer of color, you wanna start lightly. That way you're not going too dark and getting the exact same value. But now, as you can see, I'm doing another layer. And then that's a pretty good one. You can see they're different. And then lighter for the next layer. That's a little too light. It's definitely not the next step of value, so I'm gonna go ahead and add another one. Just keep going till it looks like the next step. Now this is starting to look a lot like this one, so I'm gonna make this one a little darker and go back. You gotta be patient with art because it takes a lot of layering, a lot of going back and correcting, and that's okay. That's also one of the joys of art, is that there's a lot we can do to make our art even better. It's not like math or science where there's immediately a right or wrong answer, or I shouldn't say science. Science is a lot of discovery too, but in math there's a lot of right and wrong answers, which is really nice because you know right away, it's obvious what's right and what's wrong, but art's different. It's not always obvious right away what's right and wrong, so we can go back and fix things and make them even better. So that's a good sense of value. At least do 4 different shades of your color, dark pressure and the lightest one. You can do even more, but I want a minimum of 4. Next, we're gonna move on to space. For space, go ahead and start in this small little corner. Draw kind of a thick tree trunk, a medium tall, somewhat tall for this space, and thick tree trunk. You can give it some little wavy lines to give the idea of bark coloring in. I even like to add some squiggle lines for the idea of branches coming out. And then I'm gonna add green to just give swirl lines for the idea of leaves, a nice full lush tree. Maybe I'll add some straight lines on the bottom for grass. So you've got this tree right here. Right next to it, maybe take 2 fingers and go right above. I want you to do a really small, narrow tree. So just a really small, narrow tree. All right, so while we drew this one big and drew that one small, it gives the idea of perspective. So say that these trees are in the same space. It's not that this tree would be smaller, it's that this tree is further away. So this tree, even though we drew it bigger, it means that it's much closer to us in view if we were looking at trees, and then that tree is off in the distance, and that's why we drew it smaller. So there's space in between these trees, but it's also perspective. The big one would be closer to our view, and the small one would be further away to our view. So this space is called perspective. Go ahead and grab another one. Just right on the side here, draw one. Actually, I'm gonna have you draw 2 hearts. Don't color them in yet, just 2 hearts side by side. Go ahead and color one of them in. Don't color both of them in, just one of them. Color it in solid. For the other one, go ahead and draw a little square around it. And I want you to leave the inside of that heart blank, but I want you to color around that heart in the square. There's different types of space. And in this illustration, what this is called positive and negative space. So when we drew this heart and we filled it up with color, that's called positive space because we're taking up the space in the paper. We're drawing by taking up space, so that's called positive space. We drew this heart, but then we colored around it. So this heart is actually called negative space. We created space around a blank object. So there's no space there, but we created the idea of space by drawing around the negative space. We're gonna do one last drawing here for space. Go ahead and take the light blue if you have it, or if you have the dark blue, and then do one large circle. Do another circle coming out of that large circle, so you're not overlapping, you're doing it underneath this large circle, and then another one underneath. So this is called overlapping because it looks like this circle is layered on top of that one, and then this medium circle, it looks like it's layered on top of this one. We can then add a little carrot nose. We'll turn this overlapping space drawing into a snowman. So again, see how it looks like the circles are overlapping? We drew one full circle, part of a circle, and then another part of a circle, but it looks like each one is stacking on top of each other or overlapping. That's another idea of space. All right, next, so it says the elements of art and then 3+. I did not draw anything on this one. I didn't even do it with my complete drawing because I want you guys to come up with your own drawing using 3 or more of the elements of art. So choose 3 or more. Again, it's totally fine if you use more than 3, but you're gonna draw your own picture using 3 or more of the elements of art in this space. Once you are done, please feel free to take a picture of this with either your parents' phone or your Chromebook and upload it to me in a private message in Google Classroom or email it to me. Thanks so much, students, and I can't wait to see your elements of art drawing.